Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. My name is Nur Zafira binti Muhammad Ismail. Along with my partner Muhammad Faiz bin Zakaria, we will presenting the applications of Code of Conduct by e-hailing drivers and delivery partner in Seremban Negeri Sembilan. Introduction. Nowadays, online platforms have evolved from basic to multi-platform in creating numerous opportunities in e-hailing development. E-hailing refers to cost-effective service provided through electronic applications in booking transport or food delivery services. During COVID-19 outbreak, e-hailing has become more popular than it was before, especially the food delivery services. Research background. Ashwin 2019 stated there are about 200,000 e-hailing drivers registered in Malaysia. Many people have benefited from the e-hailing revolutions and are attracted to this industry because they are able to work in flexible conditions, working part-time with their own schedule to earn some extra income. In Malaysia, the e-hailing services are Grab, Foodpanda, Uber and MyCar, and each company has their rules and regulations. Problem statement. E-hailing service offer convenience. However, there are some cases arising among e-hailing drivers and delivery partner which are related to safety and security cases such as groping incident in Tamarin, robbery in Gombak, fraud and fake order in Kota Kinabalu. This is supported by the fact that 1,000 e-hailing drivers were found to have criminal records based on screening process. The problem stated when there is unspecific e-hailing setting up on people. It is easy to apply as a delivery partner because there is simple procedure. Based on the incident happened, the drivers and delivery partner have a high possibility to be involved in unethical behavior. The unethical behavior can be curbed through the implementations of Code of Conduct. Therefore, this study aims to investigate the effectiveness of Code of Conduct to deal with e-hailing drivers and delivery partner behavior. I will explain the research objective. First, to determine the relationship between the practices of code value and principle and the effectiveness of Code of Conduct. Second, to determine the relationship between awareness level on Code of Conduct affect the effectiveness of Code of Conduct. Third, to determine the relationship between zero tolerance policy and effectiveness of Code of Conduct. Fourth, to determine the main factor influencing the effectiveness of Code of Conduct towards driver and delivery partner in Seremban Negeri Sembilan. The conceptual framework shown that there is relationship between three independent variables, which are the practices of code value and principle, awareness level of Code of Conduct, zero tolerance policy, with dependent variable, which is the effectiveness of Code of Conduct. Independent variable. First, practices code value and principle. Morgan and Leiker 2006, which stated that value and principle might have a related relationship between Code of Conduct. Ethical considerations are influenced by values that measure of significance. For hypothesis #null, there is no relationship between the practices code value and principle and the effectiveness of Code of Conduct. Then H1, there is a relationship between the practices code value and principle and the effectiveness of Code of Conduct. Second, awareness level of Code of Conduct. This was assigned to the study by Salim et al. 2020, which the Code of Conduct creates awareness among drivers and delivery partner. Code of Conduct is the most common rule in an organization that include ethical standard. For hypothesis #null, there is no relationship between the awareness level Code of Conduct and the effectiveness of Code of Conduct. Then H2, there is a relationship between the awareness level Code of Conduct and the effectiveness of Code of Conduct. Third, the zero tolerance policy. Henry et al. 2021 stated, which zero tolerance policy allows company to prevent and control employee behavior that is unlawful, improper, or against the organization's Code of Conduct through punishment or sanctions. Then #null, there is no relationship between the zero tolerance policy and the effectiveness of Code of Conduct. Then H3, there is a relationship between the zero tolerance policy and the effectiveness of Code of Conduct. Research methodology. For research design, we use cross-sectional design and quantitative survey. For analysis unit, refer the individuals who drivers and delivery partner at Seremban Negeri Sembilan. Sample size is 270 respondents among e-hailing drivers and delivery partner. Then, sampling technique. We use convenience sampling, which simple accessibility and willingness in participate. Next, data collection. We use questionnaire to collect data from respondents. As the measurements, the questionnaire consists of Likert scale of agreement that used for Section B, C, D, and E. Section A is demographic profile. Section B is the effectiveness of code of conduct that adapted from GRAP 2022. Section C is the practices of code's value and principle that adapted from GRAP 2022. Section D is awareness level of code of conduct that adapted from YAP 2019. And Section E is zero tolerance policy that adapted from GRAP 2022. Last but not least, SPSS in analyzing the data through descriptive analysis, correlations analysis, and multiple regression. As we can see here, this is processed during collecting data at Seremban areas.
Next is the finding of demographic profile. This study was associated with 217 respondents, and there is 180 of male respondents, which 82%, and 37 of female respondents, which is 17.1%. The majority of them were between 21 to 30 years old, which is 58.1%, followed by respondents from 31 to 40 years old with 22.6%, while respondents from 21 years old and below constitute 12.9%. Followed by respondents from 41 to 50 years old with 6%, and lastly 50 years old and above that were only 0.5%. Among four marriage status, single showed the highest score, which was 52.5%, followed by married at 45.5%, and divorcee and widow or widower at 5% and 0% repetitively. The respondents who work part-time are at 63.1%, while the respondents who work full-time are 36.9%. From the study also can be found that 34.1% of the respondents have 6 months to 1 year of experience as an e-hailing employee, followed by 32.3% that are 1 to 3 years of experience as e-hailing employee, and 20.7% with less than 6 months of experience. The least working experience as an e-hailing employee was 3 years and above, that scored 12.9%. Last but not least, the majority of the respondents have heard about the code of conduct for e-hailing driver or delivery service at 80.6%, while 19.4% of the respondents have not heard about code of conduct for e-hailing driver or delivery services. Next, the main finding of Pearson correlation analysis. The first objective is to determine the relationship between the practice of code value and principle and the effectiveness of code of conduct toward e-hailing driver or delivery partner in Seremban Negeri Sembilan. The analysis is Pearson correlation, and the result are R equal to 0.430 and P equal to 0.000. This shows that there is significant relationship between the practice of code value and principle and the effectiveness of code of conduct because P value is less than 0.05. Therefore, the alternative hypothesis HA1 is rejected and the null hypothesis H01 is rejected. The second objective is to determine the relationship between the level of awareness of code of conduct and the effectiveness of code of conduct toward e-hailing drivers or delivery partner in Seremban Negeri Sembilan. The analysis that has been used is Pearson correlation. The result is R equal to 0.181 and P equal to 0.008. This shows that there is significant relationship between the awareness level of code of conduct and the effectiveness of code of conduct because the p-value is less than 0.05, which is 0.008. Therefore, the alternative hypothesis is accepted and the null hypothesis is rejected. The third objective for this study is to determine the relationship between the adoption of zero tolerance policy and the effectiveness of code of conduct toward e-hailing drivers or delivery partner in Seremban. The analysis is Pearson correlation with the result of R equal to 0.176 and P equal to 0.009. This shows that there is significant relationship between zero tolerance policy and the effectiveness of code of conduct because the p-value is less than 0.05, which is 0.009. Therefore, the alternative hypothesis is accepted and the null hypothesis is rejected. The last objective is to determine the main factor influencing the effectiveness of code of conduct toward e-hailing driver or delivery partner in Seremban Negeri Sembilan. The analysis is multiple regression. The result for the multiple regression is adjusted R squared equal to 0.186 and the high beta value which depicts the relevant which is beta equal to 0.503 and P equal to 0.000 explain a high degree of effectiveness of code of conduct toward driver or delivery partner in Seremban Negeri Sembilan. Therefore, the practice of code of conduct is the strongest predictor compared to the other variable. Now we move on to research recommendation. The first research recommendation is incentive training development for employee. Training is a structured activity focused on transmitting information and guidance to improve the subject's performance or to help them acquire a required degree of knowledge or competence. The goal of training is enhancing one's level of skill, knowledge, and competency through planned and systematic action. The next research recommendation is setting clear expectation for the e-hailing driver and delivery partner. The clear expectation toward code of conduct would help the company indicate specific guidelines with correct and clear rules. This is because most employees prefer knowing whether they are in the proper direction or not. E-hailing company may benefit significantly from clearing, outlining expectation, and assigning duties to each employee. Based on the finding, the awareness level on code of conduct is also significant toward the effectiveness of code of conduct than other variable. The third research recommendation is to promote ethical behavior among driver or delivery partner. The organization culture and morale are impacted by ethical behavior. When workers are employed by a company they believe in, retention of those workers is made clearer for the employer. Employees prefer to work for organizations that uphold ethical standards and treat their employees equitably. The ethical behavior could be encouraged through seminar and related program, also rewarding the one that act ethically and punish the one that act unethically at the workplace. Lastly, the research recommendation is raising awareness on code of conduct via social media. The awareness among driver or delivery partner toward the code of conduct should be increased as the level could be identified whether the code of conduct is being applied. Promoting quality on certain code of conduct could be ascertained through social media. Social media has made it possible for businesses to advertise their product and services more affordably and effectively online. And it provides new technique for managing and coordinating interaction between potential customers. For instance, promote and advertise the code of conduct through WhatsApp, Telegram, and blog posts to the driver or delivery partner. Next, there is limitation research that could be identified in the research. First, limited scope of study and data. The study only included a specific group of driver or delivery partner in the sample and limited the study's range. For the purpose of this study, the researcher picked solely e-hailing driver or delivery partner in Seremban. This study may not accurately reflect the effectiveness of code of conduct for all driver and delivery partner who can measure their effectiveness. In addition, the researcher could not get the exact population of driver and delivery partner in Seremban. This is because the e-hailing administrator was unable to reveal or expose the exact number of the population since it is private and confidential. Due to that, the researcher only get the estimated number of driver and delivery partner population, which is 500. So, the limitation on data would cause inaccuracy in the research toward drivers or delivery partner in Seremban Negeri Sembilan. Hence, as the future recommendation is extending the research area, including Kuala Pilah and Rembau, so the population would be wider. The second limitation is limited outcome in the quantitative study. The researcher employed the quantitative approach for data gathering. However, the procedure is not rigorous. Quantitative research involves structured questionnaire which one close-ended question. It can lead to the limited outcome which in a generalized form, the result cannot always represent the actual occurrence. It may be impossible to reveal the respondent true thought on the code of conduct since some respondents might have their own thought that were not included in the offered questionnaire. The researcher recommends that future studies should conduct an interview session with the respondent to guarantee that the data is totally correct based on the condition of the respondent rather than asking them to pick the appropriate answer to the offered questionnaire. The third limitation is reliability of the result. These studies solely rely on Google Form to collect responses from respondents and to provide them with a choice of answer. Some respondents may not even read the survey question before answering them, resulting in inaccurate results. Furthermore, when there are many factors to be determined, the question and part of the survey will take longer to complete. This may cause respondents to just answer the question without truly consider the best response that fit their position and mindset. In future, the researcher can present shorter questions so that respondents will read them attentively. This is because when a question is too long, some respondents find it inconvenient and just answer it without truly reading the question, resulting in erroneous data for the research. Other than that, some driver or delivery partner are unable to understand the question wisely. Some respondents might only tick the answer box without reading the question first. The last research limitation is lack of prior study on the code of conduct. Citing prior research study is the foundation of a literature review and help establish the foundation for understanding the research problem that is being investigated. Previous study contribute to improvement and enrichment of scientific research by providing the researcher with strong foundation and substantial information about the research being conducted. Moreover, previous study helped the researcher avoid repeating previously studied area and avoiding making the same mistake as other researcher. However, for this research that specifically investigate the effectiveness of code of conduct under ethic area, hardly and rarely for researcher to obtain the similar study, especially in Seremban Negeri Sembilan. If there are any, only case study from other states and countries which focusing on ethical behavior and code of conduct. This research would be the first non-research in Seremban that focuses on the code of conduct among e-hailing driver or delivery partner. In conclusion, this study has provided knowledge and awareness toward organization, particularly the management of an e-hailing firm on how to increase employee acceptance and adoption of code of conduct. Code of conduct are made to predict and stop certain kind of behavior such as integrity issue of fraud, sexual harassment, assault, conflict of interest and others. All in all, hopefully this research would contribute a study that able to be referenced for all research or contributing something novel to the academic community. This study not only about numbers, but the researcher also discussed about the findings so it can be meaningful.